Hey, how's it going everyone? This is the Anime Man. With every genre of every medium, there is always this list of greats that every fan of that genre is probably familiar with. Now, while the content of that list may change with every individual, I feel that the more niche of a category you go, the more refined and common that list starts to seem to everybody. And in the world of anime, and especially manga, I don't think there is a more niche and more refined and common list of greats than that of the genre of horror. While I'm not necessarily a fan of horror movies or games, I absolutely adore horror anime and manga. Don't ask me why. And I've stated my passion for horror anime and manga in the many videos that I have done on the genre. And when it comes to the greats of the horror manga world, I can only think of one person who would rise to the top, and is an artist that I think even the most elitist of horror manga fans would kind of sit back and go, yep, my mans, you right, Nana? You right. It's not how they talk, but you get the idea. I'm of course talking about the one and only伊藤Junji. Known colloquially as the father of horror manga,伊藤Junji's works have scared us and fascinated us with its creepy and oftentimes gruesome art and atmospheric backgrounds, mysterious and multi-layered characters, and of course, some good old-fashioned nightmare fuel straight from the amygdala of the father of horror manga himself. Many sleepless nights were the result of too much Ito in my life. Never forget Uzumaki. But I think one thing that a lot of伊藤Junji fans have thought about for the longest time is, will this ever work in anime? Because I think that us伊藤Junji fans have always secretly wanted an anime adaptation of an伊藤Junji work, but we're always kind of afraid to see what the results may be in case they were really shitty. But lo and behold, this season we were treated to the伊藤Junji Collection, a series covering the many short stories found in the works of伊藤Junji himself. When I first saw the announcement to this anime, I was like, yeah girl, that's the one, girl. That's the one. I don't actually talk like that, but you get the idea. I was excited. An伊藤Junji anime full of his amazing short stories, which are all so creepy and so awesome. Let's do it. I am ready to shit a brand new hole in my fresh pair of undies. And well, I just finished watching episode 3, which at the time of this recording was the most recent episode, and my overall verdict of the Junji Ito collection was, it's okay, I guess. Now, hear me out. I'm not gonna go on my ultra harsh critic mode and say that this anime adaptation was horrible. If anything, I'm disappointed not really at the anime itself, but rather at the large amount of people who actually gave this anime a go. Look, I don't mean to bring super outdated memes back, but the amount of people that dropped this anime after episode 1 is too damn high. Because even though I've gone on record to say that I am a massive伊藤Junji fan, I will admit that that first episode fucking sucked. I don't know if it's because of the choice of stupid stories like Soichi's convenient curses, or the stupid pacing and plot development, or the shoddy voice acting, or even the not scary at all imagery. But I can say right now that that first episode is not an伊藤Junji anime. Which is a damn shame, because I'm sure that there were a lot of people who watched this anime not knowing who the hell伊藤Junji is or what his body of work entails. But it's an even bigger shame because they missed out on episode 2, which was the point where Studio Dean finally started to understand a little bit on what makes an伊藤Junji manga so great. Fashion Model had this ultra creepy monster girl with just the right amount of gore and disturbing imagery to get the chills running. And Long Dreams is a staple short story for伊藤Junji fans, getting so infamous to the point where it garnered its own 60-minute live action film back in 2000. And this recent third episode just kept that creepy ball rolling in the right direction. From here, this is where we started to see Studio Dean utilize sound design a lot more to create that unique yet disturbing伊藤Junji vibe. Lovesick Dead had this ambient atmospheric soundtrack that would come in and out with the many mood swings of the plot of the story. And Slug Girl was short yet extremely effective in bringing out the good body horror that伊藤Junji is so known for. And yet, it's so sad to think that this anime is still just okay. And as I sat there watching the credits of episode 3 roll by, I thought to myself, why? Why is this just okay? Yeah, I mean, the first episode sucked, but the other 2 episodes were getting closer and closer to what we envisioned an伊藤Junji anime adaptation to be like. It's the first time we've ever seen an伊藤Junji manga on the big screen. So why? Well, because it turns out that the伊藤Junji Collection is actually not the first ever伊藤Junji anime adaptation. During the many years that伊藤Junji rose to fame, there have been a countless amount of live-action adaptations of his works, such as Tomie, Uzumaki, and even Kakashi. But long ago, back in the year of 2012, it seems a certain anime studio by the name of Ufotable decided to give a go at adapting one of伊藤Junji's most famous long stories. And that first ever伊藤Junji anime adaptation was none other than Gyor. Now, to be completely honest with you, before I started writing the script to this video, I had no idea that there had been an anime adaptation of Gyor before. I mean, if anything, I should know. My mans, I fucking love伊藤Junji. And it's an anime done by Ufotable, which, if you're familiar with anime studios, is a name that you've probably heard before, if not know exactly what kind of stuff they've done in the past. And yet, I hadn't heard of them ever making an伊藤Junji anime before, so I figured there must have been a reason as to why nobody was talking about this, and that I had never heard of it. Well, now that I've finally sat down and watched this adaptation, I can tell you exactly why nobody was ever talking about this adaptation. Because it sucks dick! Now look, I'm not here to criticize Ufotable's choice of art, because if anything, that was the strongest point of this Gyor adaptation. The creepy vibes they pulled off with the fish, coupled with its realistic and grotesque movements, was single-handedly the most accurate and creepy adaptation of Itoism we've ever seen. The problem was basically everything else. One of the biggest criticisms with the Gyor anime was that the story had been completely rewritten for the sake of making the film more mainstream friendly. It went from a story about a male protagonist enjoying a holiday with his damsel in distress to a strong female protagonist who's on a holiday with her friends and has to rescue the world from uncertain doom. The protagonist is now this ideal mediator who tries to find the truth by outliving the horrors that attack her, while her friends and other side characters fall victim to the horrors simply because they're much shittier characters, rather than the story of a man who tried to use science and determination to prove that his girlfriend wasn't just a paranoid crazy bitch, only for every horror to befall under him, leading to his inevitable isolation and destruction of the entire world. As you can see, I was pretty disappointed about this change. But what I think disappointed me the most was the fact that Ufotable, the people who created this anime adaptation, did not understand what makes an伊藤Junji manga an伊藤Junji manga. And this is where I want to start talking about伊藤Junji's body of work as a whole, and why even with anime adaptations like Gyor and the伊藤Junji Collection, I don't ever think we will get a perfect adaptation of his body of work. For those of you that have never heard of伊藤Junji or never read any of伊藤Junji's manga, I just want to make this really clear that the selling point of伊藤Junji's manga is not the story. If anything,伊藤Junji's stories hardly ever have logical reasoning behind them. And many of the characters that we see very rarely have any kind of unique asset or characteristic about them. Because I think one thing that a lot of people seem to forget when reading an伊藤Junji manga is the fact that it is a horror, not horror action, not horror adventure, not even horror drama, but just pure horror. What I think makes horror really interesting is the fact that we consume it in many different ways through many different senses. We can listen to horror, we can watch horror, we can feel horror. And what Junji Ito does with his manga makes you feel that sense of hopelessness, fright, fear, disgust, every other feeling that comes with the genre by leaving a huge sense of ambiguity and mystery. Ambiguity not only in what exactly the protagonist of the story needs to do to combat the threat, but ambiguity in the threat itself. And we feel that fear not from the plot, but from the sheer sense of knowing what is going to happen, what has happened, and how it happened. My good friend and fellow Anituber Super Eyepatch Wolf discussed this in his own伊藤Junji video, which I think is absolutely fucking fantastic and definitely worth a watch, so I'll leave that in the link in the description. This is where Ufotable's Gyor comes back in. They focus so much on creating a story that makes the most amount of sense, with the most understandable reasoning and logic behind certain characters' actions and plot progressions, that we slowly yet surely started to lose that sense of ambiguity and fear. We didn't need a reason for Tadashi to turn into what he did. We didn't need a reason for Aki to hate and turn against Erika. We didn't need any reason for Kaori's connection towards the common theme of the smell of death, because none of that is explained in the manga for the sake of ambiguity, because ambiguity in the unknown creates fear. And I think the fear of not knowing what exactly it is that you're up against and what exactly it is capable of doing is scarier than any logical story ever written. Now at this point you might be thinking, well Joey, compared to the Gyor adaptation, the伊藤Junji collection does stick to the original source material. All the stories stay just as ambiguously scary as the original manga, so that must mean it's good, right? Well, yes, but in my opinion that still doesn't change the fact that this adaptation as a whole is just okay. But while it is just okay, I do think that it is the closest we've ever gotten to that perfect Junji Ito adaptation. I think one of the reasons why Ito Junji's works are so great is the fact that it is a manga, which means that there are many benefits and manga-only techniques that authors like Junji Ito can use to elicit different kinds of responses and emotions from us viewers. For starters, Junji Ito's art style is extremely unique even in the horror manga world. Every quote-unquote normal character has this mix of beauty and unease to them. They're hauntingly pretty, almost as if they're trying to conceal an inner monster within themselves that could just suddenly all come out at a single page turn. Since every story from his long stuff to his short stuff has this overarching theme of mystery about its progression, after you've read a few of his manga, you start to never become too sure who exactly the real horror actually is. Sometimes it's the monster that's shown on page 1, while it can sometimes be the very protagonist we were following throughout the whole story. While at other times the real evil doesn't come out until the very end of the story, and sometimes it doesn't even come out at all. And when and if it does ever come out, we're almost never ready for what it is, what it looks like, and what it can do, due to a certain manga-only technique that Junji Ito has managed to perfect in his works. The page turn. When you flip a page in every manga, whatever is on the next page appears in your face all at once almost immediately. Ito Junji and many other great horror mangakas have used that technique to elicit all sorts of sudden fear, sudden disgust, sudden fearful and frightening emotions, with these almost jump scare like panels due to the nature of how a page turn works. It's the feeling of turning a page and seeing something that you didn't expect to see and being like, oh, fuck that. It's not like a traditional jump scare in a video or a game where it's this sudden flash and you react with this kind of reflex-like motion. It's a jump scare of seeing something you expected to see but not in the way that you imagined it to, all whilst doing it at your own pace. And I think this is an element that the Ito Junji collection definitely tried to utilize by maintaining the same plot as its original source material, but managed to not do it in as effective of a manner as its source material. Which I thought was really interesting, considering you'd think that creating a jump scare through something like an anime using animation and sound would be a lot easier and way scarier than, say, doing it in a manga, which is just a still image that is brought about with your own pace of a page turn. Well, in the case with Ito Junji, and more specifically his art style, I think the fact that it is just a still image is what makes it scarier than anything else. A lot of the page turn reveals and scenes of horror in an Ito Junji manga are always portrayed with this sense of calmness and quietness. You almost never see any kind of sudden movement or portrayal of sound or a sudden jump. It's almost like this screenshot in time that has just been frozen, sitting there while you wait for your brain to process what exactly it is that you're looking at. And this is where Ito Junji can utilize his incredible art skills to such quality and effect. Since there is no sudden movement, he can make every feature, every brushstroke stick out of the screen to the highest quality. I feel that by doing this as well, he also gives us this space to kind of fill in the gaps with our own imaginations. Since it is just this still shot frame in this moment of time, it kind of gives us the opportunity to think, well, how would that look like in real life? Or how would that look like in animation? How would it sound like? How would it feel like if it happened in real life? Which I think is so genius that a mangaka whose main job is to portray emotion by visually showing you what it is that you're trying to react to gives this power in the viewer to fill in the gaps and basically get scared, not at what the author is showing us, but rather the fucked up stuff that is happening up here. And I feel that was the biggest problem with this anime adaptation. The fact that you can now know exactly how this certain scene looks, sounds, and moves takes away that large portion of fear. Since we don't have to imagine how scary something is anymore, it's all up to the visuals to scare us, which for the most part was not even close to being as effective as the original source material, since it didn't exactly copy伊藤Junji's unique art style. There were also just way too many uneventful, boring, and flat shot compositions that really didn't aid in eliciting enough fear and mystery into the viewers. I mean, I'm just saying it probably didn't help that they got the same guy who directed Diabolic Lovers to take reins on this series, because we all know yaoi is the scariest horror of them all. So I feel that a director who has the balls to experiment and explore different kinds of directing and shot composition techniques could have changed the dynamics and effect of the series by a fuckload. Since there's nothing quite like filming a horror movie, and it's only really the great explorative and innovative directors that manage to film a horror movie that lasts throughout the ages. And it's the same thing with anime. Some of the best horror anime that have ever been created have been thanks to the aid of some of the most innovative and creative directors out there, and is aided with the help of some innovative and basically animation only techniques to up the creepy factor. Bottom line is anime directors are really fucking important and we should respect them more. So as you can see, I had some problems with the伊藤Junji Collection anime adaptation, but I feel I have the biggest problem with just trying to adapt伊藤Junji's works to anime altogether. Because let me tell you, trying to do it is absolutely no easy feat. This is the king of horror manga we're talking about, not some shitty Super Nintendo game. You can't just do a few little changes here and there and then port it to a new system and expect everybody to like it just as much as the original. And in the case with authors like伊藤Junji, I just don't think we'll ever get a perfect anime adaptation anytime soon. Not because the directors or the scriptwriters or the animation studio sucks, but because the legacy that伊藤Junji has created and the techniques that he used to create that legacy can only be fully fleshed out through the medium of manga. And if anything, we shouldn't be complaining because the伊藤Junji Collection is probably the closest we've ever gotten to that perfect伊藤Junji adaptation. Is that a bad thing? Yeah, it's a shame. But I encourage everybody who dropped the伊藤Junji Collection at episode 1 to give episode 2 a go, and you will see what you've been missing out on. And if you still don't feel up to the task, then I encourage you to go and read some of伊藤Junji's manga. Because out of the humongous cesspool of mangakas that exist in the industry, Junji Ito is one that needs to be known and read by everybody. I actually know a lot of people who didn't like horror at all who I recommended伊藤Junji to, and since then they've fallen in love with the genre. So even if you say you're not exactly a fan of horror or you don't like horror, I suggest you at least give it a go. And if you still don't like it, then hey, you still don't like it, that's completely fine. My personal recommendations are, of course, his well-known long stories like Uzumaki, Tomie, Gyor. But if anything, I encourage you check out the huge plethora of short stories that he has created. The very same short stories that inspired the Junji Ito collection. As much as I love his long-running series, I think his short stories is where he truly excels in showing all sorts of different sides of the many faces that horror has. So yeah, have fun sleeping tonight. But guys, let me know what you think. Do you like or dislike伊藤Junji? Do you like or dislike the伊藤Junji anime adaptation? What do you think are some of the points that make伊藤Junji just so fucking good? And do you think we will ever see one day that perfect伊藤Junji anime adaptation? I'm always interested to hear your opinions on things, so let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Anyways guys, thanks for watching. As always, like and favorite if you enjoyed, subscribe for more anime banner, and I'll see you guys in the next video of whatever I make. Keep watching anime. じゃあね